So my goal is to top 8 a Riftbound regionals within 1 year. And I only started playing 2 months ago. And on top of having a 9 to 5, also having a daughter that I need to take care of. And I've been getting destroyed at Riftbound ever since I started. My name is Alex. I've always played a bunch of other TCGs. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! Played in my first one and got destroyed there. Played the Naruto TCG with a bunch of my friends. And then finally played more competitively when I started Kaijudo TCG, which is like a remake of Duel Masters. I did pretty well. I would say I was like above average at that game, but it was like very small game and it died like 3 years afterwards. And then I played a bit of Force of Will as well, which I played a bit. I almost stopped a regional, but then I stopped playing competitively at all. I always wanted to be really good at a TCG ever since I was a kid. So now I'm trying to make that dream come true. So in this series, I'm going to go through really my journey of, how do I start from almost basically a beginner at Riftbound, and how can you top 8 a regional within 1 year? And this episode 1, is going to be about what is my process? How am I going to do that? Let's start with the screen here. So this is basically what I need to do, right? So I'm pretty much a beginner. Like, if I had to place myself on the timeline, I'm like basically here. Like, I know the rules, I know the fundamentals. I've played a couple games. I top 8 one of my skirmishes, well, the only skirmish that I played in, but I'm very, very far to being a top 8 player. Like, I'm super far. So I really think that there's like 3 different components or stages of, getting to a top 8. And I don't really know, honestly, because I'm discovering this at the same time as everyone. And I'm just sharing my thought process, right? How do we get better as a player? And how do we get to top 8, right? So I think there's 3 stages. The first one is learn the basics and play 100 games. So what do I mean by that? So learn the basics. I'm not going to go into much detail here. It is really simple. It's really just like learn the rules and how to play the game, right? So I think anyone can do this. This is like, in anything that you want to start at, this is like the basics. Really just like understand what the rules are, how to really play the game, understand that, in this game, you have a legend, you have a champion, you have runes, you have units that you can play, you have spells, you have gears and all that. Once you do that, I think the very next thing, if you want to get better, is just play a lot of games. To me, like, if you want to have like a milestone, this is like play 100 games. It could be a best of 1s, it could be a best of 3s, whatever. Try a bunch of different legends, different decks, get destroyed by a bunch of decks, but try to get to 100 games. I think after 100 games is when you start understanding a bit of strategy. Like, how to win a game. I'm hoping that in 100 games, you at least win a couple, if not more than that. And you probably get destroyed by a lot more as well. But your goal is really just to get 100 games so that you understand the landscape of like all of the decks that you can play out there. Like, how do you win? How do you prevent people from winning as well? And also just like having more knowledge about all the cards and interactions that you can create in Riftbound. To me, the best way is really just like play online. I'm going to repeat myself probably a couple times in this video, but I think that playing online makes it so much easier to get reps. Like, I think Nexus Nights, you should be going, support your locals, go to Nexus Nights, meet other people. Like, this is what, to me, TCGs is all about, is like really the offline interactions. It's like meeting people, making new friends, and seeing them, like at Nexus Nights, skirmishes, and regionals. But really, if you do want to get better, I think the faster way to do that is playing online. And there's 2 different simulators out there that I recommend. It's either TCG Arena, which I think most people play at, and if not, then it's Rift Atlas, which is like a new simulator that just got out. TCG Arena is like super, super manual, and Rift Atlas is still super manual, but there's like a little bit of like quality of life improvements that they made, which I think is nice. So honestly, either one of these is perfectly fine, but I think this is the best way to get quick games, just so that you can kind of like ramp up and understand really how to play the game. And to be honest, I don't even think that I'm truly at 100 games by now. So I'm probably like around this area, if I'm being honest. Like, I still think that I don't know all of the cards that are out there. Like, I probably know like the best decks. I've played against the best decks. I've played some decks myself, especially Aurelia. I would say that that's mainly the deck that I've been playing since the very beginning. So I do understand the interactions and stuff like that, but I definitely don't think I have 100 games. Anyways, so I definitely think that like the first stage is really to get up to this point, and then, then you can like really start improving as a player after that. And then, if you want links to all of these, like TCG Arena, Rift Atlas, I'm going to be talking about other, resources as well that I use. All of those are going to be in the links in the description bar, so you can look at that afterwards. Then, stage 2. Stage 2 is like, honestly, it's like, it never really ends, but I say that you can like separate stage 2 into play 100 best of threes and get feedback. And the reality is like these kind of like feed into each other. So what do I mean by that? So I think the biggest difference between Riftbound, let's say, and maybe other TCGs is that the best of 3 format is like completely different than playing a best of 1. I would say that not only that in this game you have a sideboard, which I think, a lot of other games have, like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, that they all have sideboards. So I'm used to that. So I know that, like if you are hard countered against a deck, then you have the opportunity to kind of come back with your sideboard. But I think what makes Riftbound really different is that they have battlefields on top of it, which adds another dimension to the game, and almost makes every game that you play very different, because you're going to always have new battlefields, and depending on the battlefield, then your game that you're going to play is also going to be very different. So like the pace of the play that you're going to have during a game, depending on the battlefields that you and your opponent are going to choose, is going to be different from a game to game basis, which means that like if you constantly play a best of 1 on just one battlefield, then you're going to know how to play that. But if you want to win in Riftbound, then you have to know how to win on multiple different battlefields. And I think that's why it's important that your new milestone after getting just like, after playing 100 games is you want to play 100 best of 3. And in complement to that, you also want to get a lot of feedback. So what do I mean by that? Is honestly, if you think about it, not just game, but anything that you want to do and you want to improve on, the best way to improve on that is to really review and get feedback on how you're doing things and trying to improve on that. So I think this is the same thing that applies here, right? So like, not only that you just want to play the game, you also have to learn how to play better, right? And I think that's what I haven't done in the other TCGs that I was playing. So like, Yu-Gi-Oh and Naruto, especially when I was a kid, I didn't really care about like trying to improve as a player. I really just wanted to play as much as possible. And it's only in Kaijudo where I started thinking about, okay, like, let's try and play test and see what happens. But I've never really incorporated what I'm going to show here or talk about here. So what does get feedback mean to me? To me, it's just like taking a lot of notes or filming your games. Really, it's having the ability to review the games that you're playing and then figuring out what are your mistakes. And then once you figure out your mistakes, you have to learn from your mistakes and not make them again. And then this is kind of like a loop where constantly every time that you play a best of 3, you can go through this process and see where your mistakes are and try to improve on them. And then these kind of like all feed together. And then that's really how you become a better player, is because you film your games, you take notes, you see all the things that you should have done, and then you understand why you made these in the first place. And then once you understand them, you have to understand how to not make them again, right? So this is why getting feedback is so important on becoming a better player. And this is how I think I will eventually top 8 a regional. Now, the problem is that like you can do this by yourself. I definitely think so. But it's a lot easier if you have someone who's a lot better than you to teach you. And that's why I think coaching, if you have the means to do it, is very worth it in my opinion. So I'm currently in Kuvi's Discord and I'm in Challenger TCG's Discord, and both for 2 different reasons. Like in Kuvi, I have like a group coaching. So every week we have like 2 sessions that we can participate in. And like in these sessions, we play against other players, and Kuvi will kind of like look at what we're doing, and we kind of like talk through the process of like why we're playing a certain card, for every turn. And then every turn, Kuvi is going to tell us like, oh, well, I think that, instead we should do XYZ. So that is basically figuring out your mistakes and learning from mistakes almost in real time. And I think that's why your feedback loop becomes so much quicker and you become a lot better as a player, a lot faster. So obviously, like, not everyone has the opportunity to pay for this. That's why, like, I'm obviously very privileged to be in this, to have the opportunity to do this. But I think if you can, it definitely is worth it. And Kuvi is not the only coach. Like, there's so many other coaches out there. Like, Challenger TCG is another one where they do group coaching. Alan, Randy, all of these top players. Usually, if you find a top player, they probably do some sort of coaching, so you can find out. But I just chose Kuvi because I think that Kuvi really understands the game very well on a fundamental level and theoretical level as well. And that's the best way for me, in my opinion, that I want to learn is like really to think the game at the fundamental level and really understand each interaction that we have in a card and, why we are playing a certain way. Challenger TCG, I'm also in their Discord. And the reason why is just because they have, first of all, there's such a big team in Riftbound. If you don't know who Challenger TCG is basically you take a bunch of the best players in America and you put them together, and that is Challenger TCG. And I think it's so valuable to have so many different opinions from all of these top players, right? They all offer a different take on either the way that they play or the decks. And I think that is super helpful when trying to learn the game as well. So I use them for a different reason, in the sense that like I just want to have a lot of different ideas. And the closer you are to better ideas, then that could also improve your thinking at the same time. And it goes back to like just getting better feedback loops. The last thing that I'll mention here, Runes and Rift Discord. So again, going back to playing online, I think the best way to do this is probably go in the Runes and Rift Discord, where they have a laddered system. So you can actually find other players to play with you. And it's more competitive than just like playing for fun. It's also going to be best of 3, which is exactly what you want to do. And you get to like compete against people that are also trying to like, become a lot better as well. So I think the best way to like really find best of 3 people is probably in the Runes and Rift Discord, especially because it's an open public Discord, so you don't need to pay anything. It's free. And there's so many people as well. So you're always going to be able to find matches. Whereas like, again, I do coaching with Kuvi, and then in the Challenger TCG, there's also people looking for games. So these are also other opportunities for you to do best of 3s. But this, first of all, you have to pay a bit to be in both Discords, as well as like there's a lot less people available. So like even if you want to play at a certain hour, maybe there's not someone there. Whereas like Runes and Rift Discord, there's so many people, so it's very likely that you're going to find someone. So like my recommendation is definitely be in Runes and Rift Discord, and then if you can't afford it, just find a coach that you think you like, and if you have the means, I would definitely recommend paying for it. Finally, stage 3, which to me is not really a stage 3, because I feel that you basically go from stage 2 to stage 3 and going back and forth, and stage 3 is challenge yourself. To me, challenge yourself is kind of like in Pokemon, where you challenge a new gym leader every time, right? So you kind of start with like your Nexus Knights, which are your locals, and right now I'm not that great, and I never win a Nexus Knight. But to me, this is like my first challenge, is really to like, okay, like I want to learn the fundamentals. I want to become a better player so that at least I frequently win my own Nexus Knights, right? And then once I'm at that level where I'm pretty consistent at winning Nexus Knights, then I can kind of go back, improve a bit more, and then now it's like, okay, like now I'm going to win skirmishes. So it's very similar to like when you play Pokemon, where you beat your gym badge 1, which is like Brock, and then your Pokemon are all level like 10 to 15. Then you go back, you train your Pokemon, you beat other trainers, you train them in the grass. Now they're like around 18 to 20, and that's when you beat Misty. And then so it's always like a back and forth, where you have like your training period, which to me goes back to stage 2, which is like all your feedback loop, and then once you are, then you kind of like want to go to the next step and see how you measure against like the actual field. And to me, that's like going into in-person events, Nexus Night, skirmishes, like your 20Ks, 10Ks, 5Ks, and then finally at regionals, right? And obviously these are just like the big offline events, but they're if you go back to Runes and Rift Discords, actually, they host like a weekly tournament that you can participate in. So I think this definitely counts, where like maybe you want to challenge yourself and see if you are able to win the Runes and Rift like weekly tournament. Then I think that is also like something where you can definitely add to like your challenges, right? So yeah, that's really it of like how I'm thinking about getting better. I don't think it's like anything super groundbreaking. It just like it takes a lot of effort. So to me, like my next step is really just like focusing on, first of all, it's like finding the time, actually. Like that is my biggest constraint right now. Like I said at the beginning that I do have a 9 to 5, and it's like not a true 9 to 5. It's like I do work a lot of hours, and I also have a daughter to take care of. And yeah, it's like when do I find the time? So I think my goal is like every day, if I'm able to play just one best of 3, that will be able to, that's like at least 7 games per week, which is better than nothing. And on top of that, I want to be able to review at least one of my best of threes. So like, again, like I'm in a Discord with Kuvi, so I'm able to like VOD. So if I'm able to record my own game when I'm playing and kind of like give my perspective of like what I did, I can then get feedback from Kuvi, and then, I know like where my mistakes are. So that way I get the feedback loop going, and I think that's super important. So that is my current plan. And, we'll see like I think my next video will be about like where I'm at in that discovery process of like what are the more like minor things of how I can improve my game. That's what I want to talk about. So that's it. And obviously, like, yeah, if you want to follow the journey, please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter as well at AlexUSam. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.